I love what you just said, and I caught it. You kind of just try to throw it in there, kind of sly, but if I want to, pretty much like I can do whatever I want as a human. How much power do we have as humans?
We have as much as we want to believe. That's the thing. The only one thing keeping us from where we want to go in our lives is the belief that we have or don't have. And then after that, skills and things like that, of course. But the number one reason why people aren't where they want to be is a belief structure. And so if we want to believe we have endless amounts of power, what we focus on expands. We'll see more opportunity to partake in that aspect of life.
Yo, so it is You Matter Unscripted, episode 12. Today we have a powerful person coming on, a friend of mine who I've actually met in person, and I'm really excited to chop it up with again. So we're going to jump right into it.
Josh Perry.
What's up, Cornelius?
What's up, bro? How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Man, I'm excited, man. Get to hang out with my man, another time. So how's everything going?
Good, man. Yeah, I just finished up some bowling practice on this Saturday morning with a buddy, and just a great start to the weekend, just chilling.
I've seen you bowling. Is this going to be like a professional thing? Because, pros become pros. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, it's interesting having that mindset, being a professional athlete with BMX, and then now just putting that energy into something that I grew up at the bowling alley for like 14 years, and then BMX took me away for 16 years, and then now I'm back at it, and I got goals set. I want to, in the next 3 years, win a regional amateur tournament and things like that. So it's cool to look at. I have 30 to 40, 50 years if I want of following this path. And if I want to take it to that level, as you know, it's just about putting the work in there with the belief. So it's just fun to have that possibility with something I'm also passionate about today. And it's just, for right now, it's just that hobby where I can put that athletic, competitive energy into without the risk of concussion or breaking a leg for the most part.
Right. I love what you just said, and I caught it. You kind of just try to throw it in there, kind of sly, but if I want to, pretty much like I can do whatever I want as a human. So a quick question for you. If you could change two things in our world, Josh, you have all the power. Give me two things you would change.
Two things. I don't know which order, but the first two things that come to mind is more empathy or understanding of others, and then also self-belief. I think those two things could change anyone's life.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question on You Matter Unscripted, which is human power. How much power? Because we follow a lot of the same people. I watch your posts and I really think, but I want to hear you say it. How much power do we have as humans?
We have as much as we want to believe. That's the thing. The only one thing keeping us from where we want to go in our lives is the belief that we have or don't have. And then after that, skills and things like that, of course. But the number one reason why people aren't where they want to be is a belief structure. And so if we want to believe we have endless amounts of power, what we focus on expands. We'll see more opportunity to partake in that aspect of life.
So why? Okay, I love that. Why is that such a hard obstacle for so many people, Josh?
On the simplistic level that I've come to understand, it's because our brain is trying to protect us. So we develop an ego, which there's a lot of misconceptions around the ego. But how I would word this is, over time, when we're 0 to 12, we're in this imprinted phase of our lives. We're in a hypnotic state. We're unconscious. We're just absorbing energy, and we're modeling what we see and what we feel. We don't have a prefrontal cortex fully developed till we're 26, so we're just absorbing and modeling. We're not really making reason out of things or logically thinking. Over time, our brain is there creating this ego, this identity to protect us from past experiences that felt uncomfortable or painful. And I think that the reason why we get to this point where it's hard to change and we're unhappy is the way society's conditioned us with, putting on your best mask, if you will, on the internet and on TV. People see that and they don't see the backstory, but then also, your ego's there to protect you from feeling any kind of pain or discomfort. And when you focus on change, that part of you comes up and it holds you back because it's familiar, even though it's not desirable, it's comfortable. Stepping into the limelight or taking charge of your life is challenging because of the fear of the unknown. So it's stress, which means survival. Pleasure is great, but it doesn't mean protecting your life the same way fear does.
Yeah, man, wow. So you just made me uncomfortable. All right. and that's the place we should be, right? That's the place where I'm like trying to change my life personally. And so I'm uncomfortable, and there's a lot of uncertainty, which uncertainty is every day, all day. But I'm uncomfortable, bro. But I'm also worrying about judgment. Like I'm worrying about how I look during this change. How does that play a part in this same thing you're talking about?
I mean, it can play just as big as a part of anything. It just matters of what you focus on and the context of the perspective that you choose, which is a powerful thing to say. And a lot of people will argue that, but your perspective is a choice. And it's when you're aware of things, when you're conscious, when you're appreciating these things, you can choose the perspective over time. With conscious repetition, you can have unconscious learnings or habits. The brain, like all learning, is unconscious. In order to change a learning, you have to be conscious in repetition. Any athlete will say that. Any artist will say that. And they see it vividly. And most people that aren't an artist in one way or another as they see it, or an athlete, it's hard to wrap their minds around until they resonate with something that they've consciously tried to get better at. And then by the time they know it, they're not really thinking about it consciously. They're just doing it out of habit.
Yeah, yeah. So I've heard athletes talk about the zone. And I'm assuming as an athlete, have you been in that space where, and that's really what you're talking about, is being conscious enough to have this zone where you go to this different place?
Yeah, like you'll hear people refer to it as the flow state. When you're so locked in and focused on something, everything else becomes irrelevant. Time and space and matter, like it doesn't, like nothing is there. You're just solely focused on something. You're locked into that flow state. Anyone can appreciate this, whether you're an athlete or you're not. It's, think about driving. I'm sitting in the parking lot right now in my car. But when I remember when I was 16, going through my learner's permit and all that, I was like, check my mirrors, check everything, seatbelt, like just fully aware. And then as you get into your 20s and 30s, you've been driving for some time, like everything's just automatic. You're not, it's just a habit. It's just there. It's just imprinted.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. So let's jump into words, because I read some of your posts and I can tell that your words are very intentional. And you also posted something a couple weeks back about words, thoughts, words, and actions. How much does it come, the words we think about and then the ones we say matter?
Everything matters. I mean, the words that we think, we speak, we write, we like everything, it's talking to our unconscious self. All learning is unconscious. So the thing about the unconscious mind, the brain, it doesn't how would I say this? It doesn't process negatives. So when we say, I don't want X, Y, or Z, it doesn't process the don't. It just hears what we don't want. But as I said earlier, what we focus on expands. So if we're focusing on what we don't want, and then we add in that the brain doesn't process negatives, we're literally focusing on what we don't want, even though we think we want the opposite. So when you're saying something, when you're thinking something, when you're reading something, you're consuming content of any kind, that's all going to the unconscious mind. You may forget 5 minutes later, but it's stored in there. And then over time, it just kind of just develops and programs you to think and feel in a way that gives you an experience based on your behavior. And then these create feedback loops. And so you're unconsciously affirming what you believe about your life and the world you live in based on the things you say, which starts with the things you hear as a child. And over time, it just becomes these patterns and these cycles that fuel each other. So the way you think affects the way you feel, your emotions, and the language of the body. And then that influences your behavior, which gives you an experience, which just drives the cycle all over. All of the way you think, feel, and behave creates your reality, your subjective reality, which can change, but it starts with becoming aware of the words you're saying, the feelings you're feeling, the things you're thinking, and the behavior you're participating in.
So if I can put that all together, pretty much if I become more aware and conscious, I have to break these loop patterns that most of us are almost on autopilot. Everything we're doing all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Including us right now. Like there's certain systems that we are not conscious of thanks to our brain and our autonomic nervous system. Like we're not focusing on pumping heart to our blood. It's just happening. We're not focused on the thought process we're having. We've just programmed ourselves in a way that I would argue you and I are very intentional about getting our behavior, our thoughts, and our words to a place that's serving us. So we've done this so much over repetition over the years that we're having this thought process in autopilot. There's just a difference of, is it serving you? Is it not? When you become aware, it's uncomfortable. And that's the saying, if it was easy, everyone would do it. It's so true.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Your topics were vision, courage, and purpose, if I'm correct. And I couldn't jump over, man. You're being an athlete, but having brain cancer. I want to know about that. I want to hear a little bit about that, because there's somebody out there that's going through something but it's not brain cancer. And so I believe if we can tap into how you beat that and went on to have a successful career, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, man, that was the vision part. I learned now reflecting that the vision I held in my mind, what was allowing me to overcome my circumstances. The vision in my mind was more compelling than what I was experiencing. And so I focused on, what am I going to do with my life when I wake up from surgery, rather than what could have been easy. And what started was, what if I don't wake up? So often do we think what if in the wrong way, rather than what if in the way we want. So instead of thinking, what if I don't wake up? I was like, focused entirely on pursuing my dream more than I already was, and thinking, what's going to happen when I wake up? What am I going to do differently? How am I going to change my life? And so vision becomes super important, because it's what compels us to move forward every day, rather than being defined by our circumstances, which you can also say is being at effect to your circumstances. When you have a clear and compelling intention in your mind and you can see it, that is going to be the fuel moving you forward. And the thing about the brain cancer, brain tumors, or it doesn't matter what the micro is, because as a human being, we all have the same human needs and the same struggles mentally and emotionally. The micro may look different. My journey with brain tumors could be similar on a human level to someone going through a divorce or losing their job, or whatever kind of hardship they had. But going back to my original word of empathy, if we can understand that we all have our own challenges, there's no better or worse, it all is the same on a human level in the macro, then we can understand and we can learn from one another.
Man, wow. So really, for that, what you went through was the same as me going through a divorce, right? The muscles and the process I have to use, because I think about my life as a system, Josh, and everything that I'm doing, I'm designing it. Like, I'm sitting at my table right here with a blueprint for every day. I don't just go out. So that's my food. That's the people I'm around. That's my workouts. That's the music I listen to, the movies I watch, and that all becomes a part of my story. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're the creators of our lives. We're in the driver's seat of where we want to go. Everything you just listed is a part of our external environment. That all fuels our internal environment. So if people are watching movies that have a negative, theme to it, or if they're listening to music, or if they're watching people that are, being victims, or they're reading negative material, or they're surrounded by people that are complaining rather than building each other up, like, all of that's information that your brain is like, the thing about the brain is we process 2 million bits of information per second on an unconscious level. That is distilled to 126 bits per second consciously. That's through generalizing, distorting, and deleting information. That's why we can all look at the same event happening. Based on our previous autobiography in our life, we will pick out different things because of what we're focusing on that led us to that point. So that's why two people will see, and we see this all the time. We see this with politics and all these things. People will look at the same event happening, and based on their past experiences, they will resonate with different things. Doesn't mean other things aren't there. It just means their awareness is missing it. We call these gorilla moments. It's like you always have these moments happening. And actually, this goes to a quick YouTube psychology exercise where they ask you to focus your attention on the people in the white t-shirts passing the basketball with a group of black t-shirts passing the basketball. You probably have seen this video. If not, remind me, I'll send it to you. When you're focused on counting how many times just the white t-shirt people pass the basketball, there's a gorilla that walks through. And at the end, it's like, how many times did they pass? You're like, oh, whatever. But did you see the gorilla? I didn't see it because I was so focused. And then they back it up and you're like, oh, those are those gorilla moments, because what you focus on expands. Doesn't mean the opportunities that we want, the experiences that we want, the things that we want, the people that we want in our lives aren't there. We're just not focused on it because we're focused on what we don't want rather than what we do want.
Yeah. Okay. Man, I love that. Let's jump into you leaving being a BMX athlete and jumping into coaching and speaking. How did you shift that? Where did that come from?
So that originally started with health coaching, because through, it was 2010 with the first brain tumor, 2012 was the second one. I read a book called Grain Brain in 2013 by one of my heroes, Dr. David Perlmutter. I went all in on creating a business, helping people, which is what allowed me to step away from competition. So it was the third brain tumor diagnosis that kind of woke me up to this higher purpose in my life rather than riding my bike, which was great. but it fueled me to get to that point, and it was self-serving. So the third diagnosis, rather than feeling sorry for myself, I made the meaning, which as human beings, we're meaning-making machines. I made the meaning of that to be, there's something more than riding my bike. And I walked away from competition, and I started my business trying to help people optimize their life, starting with food. And then it progressed over the years with me getting into the mental and emotional work. I know you and I are both fans of Dr. LaPera and, doing the change work, but the mental and emotional pieces is what drives behavior. It's not the food choices. It's not the lack of exercise choices. It's the mental and emotional programming that fuels those. Once you can start there, then everything else becomes easier in terms of systems. It's just behavior. And that's honestly, it was the third diagnosis of leaving me with 4 brain tumors today that inspired this path of, why not make a living doing something I'm completely happy and fulfilled and passionate about that's contributing to society, rather than going and getting a job that I may not like.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, being on the same path, man, that contribution is something different, isn't it? When we're helping people that once was a space that we struggled with. And I am reading her book, Holistic Psychologist, and it's amazing. Yep. Like it's sitting right next to me right here. So let's talk about purpose a little bit. And the reason for something is the definition of purpose. But let's talk about why it's so hard for people I hear people say it every day, Josh, I can't find my purpose. I can't find my purpose. What would you tell a person that says that? And so, because of social media, we got the best of Josh Perry. I want to thank him for coming on, talking about mindset, talking about vision, purpose, and I'm going to rank them in order. You first must have a vision. You second must know your purpose. And it's not really about finding it. It's already with you, actually. You're going to actually expose it by experiencing and doing, exploring every day and doing other things. And the last thing he was going to talk about, and I'll just talk about it really quick, is courage, right? I'm scared. I'm going to be honest. Courage is the ability to be scared about something and do it anyway. I'm going to say that one more time. Courage is the ability to be scared about something in your life, but forge forth and do it anyway. And so we want to thank Josh for coming out to You Matter Unscripted, number 12, right? We've had 12 people on so far that bring amazing stories and bring amazing, he's coming back on. This is even better. Even better. Yo.
Hey, I apologize. My phone hit a temperature issue.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sitting in my car and I'm like, dang, and it just shut off.
Well, obviously you're not in Raleigh because there's no temperature problems here. It's cold.
I'm in the parking lot. It says it's 55 now, but I guess because I don't have tint on my car, it just destroyed my phone. But I popped back in when you were talking about courage, and I left when you asked me about purpose. So if you want, we can talk about those. I love those.
Yes, please do. Let's jump into purpose.
So purpose, like I said, as human beings, we're meaning-making machines. We make meaning out of everything we see based on our experiences in the past. And with purpose, like I said, the third brain tumor diagnosis is what led me to discovering my purpose. And I chose that purpose. That's the thing. We choose our purpose. It's not always a conscious choice, as in like, this is going to be my purpose today. Something happens, and then we learn information, and then we choose. For me, it was threats to my life with my health issues and my health challenges, I should say, previous challenges. So something I want to talk about with purpose that I quickly want to hit, that people ask me about all the time, is how do I find my purpose? Number one, if you don't know what your purpose is, your purpose, I believe, should be to be the best version of yourself, because that's going to directly and indirectly impact other people. Number two, how you find your purpose is by pursuing the life you truly want to. That's exactly what I did. I could give someone my journey if I magically could, but I would never do that, because that would involve them going through brain tumors, injuries, depression, being broke, living on floors and couches, all that. But the main point that I'm making is I had a dream, a vision to pursue BMX as a career. That's everything I wanted to do growing up as a child, and I made that happen. Along the way, I had obstacles. I had challenges. I am beyond grateful for those, even though that people say I'm crazy for the brain tumor diagnosis and living with brain tumors today. But the reason I'm grateful for them is because it allowed me to discover my purpose that was bigger than myself. So the main thing I want people to know is, if you don't know what your purpose is, it's to become the best version of yourself inside and out. And number two, follow what you love. It doesn't mean you need to make a career out of it, but just pursue the life that you envision in your mind and be as close to alignment with that as possible, because the opportunities to expose your purpose beyond yourself will show.
Man, that's powerful. When you make it that simple, it makes make me feel like, okay, these are the things I need to do to be my best self, and not worried about what society norms say I should be doing at my age, or, should I be married already, and all these other things that we worry about. And that doesn't lead us to being our best self. Courage is the thing. Josh, I'll be honest, I got some things I want to do in my life, and I'm afraid, but I'm doing them anyway. Is that not the definition of courage?
Exactly. That's where when I jump back in, you were speaking to that, and you put it perfectly. And that's when I'm on stage, or when I was on stage speaking, people would, in the Q&A section, like, how do you get up and do this? Like, you seem so fearless. Like, how do I do that? I was like, you want to know a secret? They're like, yeah, of course. I'm terrified right now.
I'm scared.
It's funny because the last talk I gave was on stage. David Goggins was also a guest speaker there. And that piece of information freaked me out, because I'm like, who am I to be on the stage with David Goggins? But then also I practiced my talks, or at that one, I had been weeks on weeks practicing it until I walked out on stage where that flow hit. I just got into flow. I had not gone through a run through without messing up once. When I got on stage, when I was all said and done, I was like, oh, I did everything. I had an intro I was trying to memorize that I really wanted to speak to, but make it natural. I kept messing up in practice, even that day. And then when the talk came, everything was perfect. That's the unconscious mind at work. You're in the flow. And so when people ask me about fear, it's like, I have fear. Like, my tattoo says, fear is just a thought. Thoughts we change. I live my life by that, because it's just a thought that creates the emotion that we feel as fear, which then signals the brain to let us know we're feeling what we're thinking, and then we're thinking what we're feeling. That drives behavior, which is a choice. You and we choose to push through the fear, which is courage. You have fear. You're not absent of fear. Otherwise, you wouldn't be human. But you push through because the vision in your mind is more compelling than the circumstances in your environment.
So over time, though, Josh, can I say to this too? I've heard national speakers that give thousands of talks say every time they step on the stage, they're afraid of public speaking, right? And so over time, do we get better at this as we practice pushing through these obstacles and limits of fear? We get stronger at, correct, in our mental space?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just that muscle. The brain is not a muscle, but we can refer to it as a muscle, but it's like you just flex it. The more you push through uncomfortable situations, the things you're afraid of, you expect it. You create a predictable condition for yourself. It's like having a map. When you know where you are and where you want to go, and you see the route, you have less fear and anxiety of getting lost, because you know it's possible, but you see that you can get back on track. With these unpredictable conditions, like speaking or pursuing a new life or whatever, the more we can, challenge ourselves, which is why I love exercising. I love exercising every morning, because it's not something I really want to do. If I had a choice, I would love to just keep in shape and be healthy I'm a human being. But I know that by doing so, I'm creating a challenge to overcome, and that's mentally going to fuel me moving forward. So the point of what I'm saying is to push through your fears. The obstacle is the way. That's a great book by Ryan Holiday. It's like pushing through for what you want on the other side of fear. The more you do that, the more you condition yourself to be comfortable being uncomfortable, even though the uncomfortableness doesn't go away, even though the fear doesn't go away. But you know what's on the other side of pushing through and being courageous.
Yeah, I love all of that. You mentioned David Goggins, and I started to smile and feel like I kind of like straightened up as you started mentioning his name, because I watch all of his work, because he says he's an alien, but he pushes through all these things like we're talking about. And I kind of feel like, just even hearing him talk, I feel like I can do things I didn't think I could do earlier. And my life is a balance of David Goggins and Gandhi. So I'm like this peaceful person over here, and I'm this crazed man over here, and this perfect storm. So Josh, I really want to thank you for joining You Matter Unscripted number 12. I want to ask you, if you could, I've had a lot of people that I actually coach with and mentor, and they say this one topic all the time, Josh, and I want you to speak us out on this topic, and that's they feel stuck. They just feel stuck. What would you tell them? I
would first ask, how do you know you're stuck?
See, that's when you know you're working with a coach. I can't, I'm not giving you an answer without asking you a question, right?
We have to know how we know we're stuck, or how we know we have our outcome, or how we know we don't have our outcome. Well, we have to create awareness.
That's how I know you're good at what you do, because anybody who gives me an answer to a situation that they don't ask me a question to is their answer. It's not about me.
They're projecting.
Yes, 100%. So most of them are talking about being stuck and just literally not knowing what to do. You know, this casual, like, what do I do next? So what would you say to that?
I mean, I would have a series of questions to gather more information to understand what they mean and where they're coming from. But what I would suggest is if I were to give a suggestion at that point, and this is gonna be very generalized, is if they feel like they feel stuck because they don't know what to do, I would ask them to look at why that is, why they feel stuck, why they don't think they know what to do. And I would argue that they do know, and that they're just spreading their mind over too many things. That what is it? The FOMO, fear of missing out. They have too many things, which I would argue, because that was my experience, 100%. I would argue that all of those fuel a higher purpose. There's something in there that you're afraid of doing. Therefore, you're like, I could do this, I could do that. I don't know what to do. They all lead up. They chunk up to a higher intention with that is the perfect thing to be doing. Either way, you're not going to, know unless you try. And that's the thing that I've learned about being stuck. I've had these ideas. I had these goals. I'm afraid of what people think, especially when I started branching out away from BMX and I was hearing things and people were saying to my face, like, oh, you changed or this or that. Like, all that comes in, but it matters about what is important to you. And if you feel stuck for any reason, I would ask you to look at why you feel stuck, how you know you're stuck, and what matters to you if everything else was irrelevant. And then we just go on a series more of questions and then back and forth dialogue.
So, see, all that just made me feel less. I'm not stuck, but if I did feel stuck, I feel like I can take action. So, Josh, I want to thank you for coming on, man. As always, I follow your page, and you're always putting out great content, and it's consistent. And that's what I respect mostly about you is it's not only consistent, it's congruent with who I believe you are. And that's the highest form of living, in my opinion. So just wanted to thank you. Anybody watching You Matter Unscripted, if there's anybody out there that wants to be a part of this, DM me, because I love having conversations with people like Josh that can help us unlock our lives and be better humans. So Josh, we'll see you next time on You Matter Unscripted, man.
Awesome, man. I appreciate your time. I love you, man. And I'm so stoked that we had that lunch at Whole Foods 4 years ago.
Bro, and hold on a second. Two things you just said. First of all, there was a fear. Like, I don't want to go meet this random guy at a Whole Foods. And we sat there for, I don't know, over an hour, right? And it was like almost like instant. There was an instant energy. We understood that. But you just told me you love me. And I want to speak to that for men. That's powerful, bro. That's a powerful statement you just said. It's going to make my day. And I appreciate you. And I love you too, bro.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and anytime
Always.
you want to chat, man, I'm always down.
I know. Appreciate you, bro. We'll see you guys next time.